A crisp and lively laugh rang out, and as the spiritual light around Mu Chen dissipated, it revealed a charming girl standing by his side. She was dressed in simple black clothing, black shirt and pants, her slender waist and long, graceful legs accentuated by the attire. Her black ponytail was casually tied, bouncing with each movement, radiating youthful vitality. Her beauty was striking. Her delicate face always wore a gentle smile, her sparkling eyes gleaming with a hint of mischief, making anyone who looked at her feel calm and refreshed. This girl, of course, was Lin Jing. "Did you sneak out this time?" Mu Chen asked with a teasing smile, looking at the girl before him. "Of course not." Lin Jing wrinkled her nose and stepped aside, revealing another figure behind her. As the spiritual light faded, a tall figure emerged, and Mu Chen and the others couldn't help but be struck by a sense of awe. But as they focused more closely, that awe turned into something a little more peculiar. The figure was dressed in a white robe, his long hair flowing behind him. His face was so handsome it seemed almost otherworldly, exuding an ethereal beauty. But upon closer inspection, it became clear that this strikingly beautiful figure was actually a man. "This is my uncle Diao, my father's sworn brother," Lin Jing said, wrapping her arm around the man's, giving a playful smile, and winking at Mu Chen and the others. "Isn't he handsome?" Mu Chen and the others exchanged awkward glances. Who could respond to that? The handsome man, hearing Lin Jing's words, twitched his lips. If anyone else had called him handsome, he would have likely given them a harsh lesson, but when it came to this girl beside him, he couldn't bring himself to feel anything but indulgence. He simply gave her a helpless yet affectionate glare. I take it this is the second master of the martial realm, Mr. Lin Jiao?" It was Yao Chun, standing beside Xiao Xiao, who smiled slightly and addressed the handsome man. Upon hearing this, Mu Chen's heart stirred. It was rumored that the second master of the martial realm came from a lower realm, originally a heavenly demon mink. After entering the Great Thousand Worlds, he had undergone multiple evolutions and was now ranked among the super divine beasts. In terms of strength, he was likely on par with the Saint Grade Heavenly Supreme. "Lin Diao greets Elder Yao." The handsome man, Lin Diao, said, his previously cold demeanor softening a little as he cupped his hands in respect. He then turned his gaze to Mu Chen and scanned him briefly. "You must be Mu Chen?" "Greetings, Senior Lin Diao." Mu Chen nodded respectfully. "Truly a prodigy. No wonder even Lin Dong holds you in such high regard," Lin Diao praised lightly. With his discerning eye, it was clear that Mu Chen possessed a deep foundation. Though he was only at the spirit grade Heavenly Supreme level for now, his future potential could very well lead him to the palace of the Great Thousand and ultimately aim for the Saint Grade. "We've already received the message you sent. When necessary, our martial realm will provide support." At this point, Yao Chen also smiled warmly and said, "If needed, the Boundless Fire Domain will offer assistance as well." Mu Chen nodded slightly at their words. His journey to the Futu ancient clan was undoubtedly fraught with danger. Although he had reached the Heavenly Supreme level, if the Futu ancient clan truly decided to break the rules, he would likely find himself too weak to face them alone. That was why, a month before setting out, he had sent people to the martial realm and Boundless Fire Domain, secretly requesting the support of these two superpowers. Of course, this support was only in case the Futu ancient clan decided to go against the agreed-upon terms. Otherwise, Mu Chen wasn't worried. "Then I truly appreciate your help, but it seems I now owe a favor," Mu Chen said, bowing in gratitude to both Lin Diao and Yao Chun. Previously, the Flame Emperor and Martial Ancestor had provided him with protection as a thank you for saving Xiao Xiao and Lin Jing. Now that those two protections had been used up, if he needed further assistance, he would have to begin accumulating favors. "Now you have truly earned the right to owe someone a favor," Lin Diao smiled lightly. In the Great Thousand Worlds, it was not easy for just anyone to request help from the martial realm or Boundless Fire Domain. But Mu Chen, at such a young age, had reached the Heavenly Supreme level, and with a future in the Saint Grade realm, a favor like this was more than sufficient. Mu Chen nodded again and said, "If there is ever a need in the future, I will do my best to repay the favor." Behind him, Ling Shi and Long Xiang breathed a quiet sigh of relief. They now understood why Chen had risked coming to the Futu ancient clan. It was clear that he had prepared for this journey, with the backing of both the boundless fire domain and the martial realm. With such support, they had nothing to fear, even if the Futu ancient clan decided to use their influence to pressure them. Ling Shi gazed at Chen with a look of comfort in her eyes, her heart touched. Who could have imagined that the young boy from the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, who once seemed so small, had unknowingly grown into someone of great influence? Now, he could even call upon the top-tier superpowers of the Great Thousand Worlds. Facing the martial realm and the boundless fire domain, even the Futu ancient clan, a venerable clan, would likely think twice before recklessly challenging him. Now that everyone is here, let us enter the floating pagoda realm, Elder Yao said with a warm smile. Upon hearing this, everyone nodded and made their way to the center of the plaza, where the Futu ancient clan's reception deacon hurried to greet them and summoned the highest-grade spirit boat. After all, in the Great Thousand Worlds, the positions of the boundless fire domain and the martial realm were not any weaker than the former Mo ancient clan. In fact, with the Flame Emperor and Martial Ancestor overseeing these two superpowers, even the 5 great ancient clans held them in respect and caution. As for Chen and his companions, they were riding on the coattails of the boundless fire domain and the martial realm, taking the highest-grade spirit boat. With numerous envious gazes directed at them, they soared into the sky toward the distant spatial gate. The spirit boat moved at incredible speed, reaching the spatial gate in just a few minutes. It radiated spiritual light as it slowly passed through. As the spirit boat passed through the spatial gate, it seemed to be scanned by a powerful force. The intensity of the power made even Chen and Lin Diao's eyes tighten slightly. This is the Futu ancient clan's clan protection array. Chen also sensed something. His eyes narrowed as he focused on the void ahead. As a master of spirit arrays, he could faintly detect the presence of an enormous, indescribable spirit array protecting this space. The power of this clan protection array was so formidable that even a saint-grade heavenly supreme would struggle to break it. This array involves numerous techniques, clearly refined by the Futu ancient clan's ancestors over countless generations. Chen closed his eyes for a moment, sensing the array. After a short while, his eyes suddenly snapped open, his expression turning serious. He had sensed something in the array that felt oddly familiar. It's my mother's technique. She must have contributed to perfecting this clan protection array. And the most distinct part is that it hasn't been long since she worked on it. Chen's gaze flickered as he smiled strangely. He quickly withdrew his spiritual perception to avoid being noticed. At this moment, the spirit boat passed through the spatial gate, and the scene before them changed dramatically. It felt as though they had entered another world, with vast, pure spiritual energy filling the air, causing various phenomena to manifest. No wonder this is the core of the Futu ancient clan, Chen said, impressed. If they were to compare it, even the ancient heavenly palace would seem less impressive than the floating pagoda realm in terms of depth and history. But this was to be expected. The ancient heavenly palace had been built solely by the heavenly emperor and had fallen after his demise. Over time, no one had maintained it, and it had been eroded by the ages. In contrast, the floating pagoda realm had been carefully managed by the Futu ancient clan for tens of thousands of years, giving it an unmatched atmosphere. The spirit boat soared across the sky, passing through this space. After about the length of an incense stick, the boat's speed slowed. Chen and the others felt it, and looked up. Ahead, they saw towering mountain ranges connected in a majestic chain. Giant black towers stood tall, seemingly endless, with countless ancient palaces scattered among them. The entire world was suffused with an ancient, timeless aura. When their spirit boat reached this region, they saw several streams of light shoot out from a distant black tower, finally landing on their boat. Futu ancient clan, Kong greets Elder Yao and Mr. Lin Diao, said the first figure, an elderly man with hair streaked with black and white. His presence was imposing, and he exuded a powerful aura that marked him as a heavenly supreme of the spirit grade. So it's Elder Kong. Elder Yao and Lin Diao nodded in acknowledgement. Chen's eyes swept over Elder Kong, then glanced behind him. His gaze paused for a moment, as he noticed a familiar figure staring at him with wide eyes in surprise. "Qing Shuang," Mu Chen muttered. He looked at the woman, his eyes flashing slightly. He hadn't expected to encounter Qing Shuang so soon after arriving at the Futu ancient clan. "Honored guests, please, make yourselves comfortable and rest for a while," Elder Kong Kong said warmly, offering a courteous smile. He then glanced at Mu Chen, a hint of curiosity in his eyes. "This young friend seems unfamiliar. Do you have an invitation?" "This young friend is an ally of both our families, and we are simply accompanying him this time to observe the grand ceremony," Yao Chen said with a smile. Upon hearing this, Kong Kong nodded with a smile, though his expression became somewhat more indifferent. He couldn't even produce an invitation, so it seemed he was only from an ordinary superpower. "Everyone, follow me," Kong Kong said, turning around and leading the spirit boat toward a towering mountain. There, courtyards were clustered together, filled with an ancient, fragrant charm, and the place was exceptionally quiet. Clearly a place for distinguished guests. "Qing Shuang, take these 3 guests to the Earth Hall," Kong Kong instructed, turning to Qing Shuang behind him. It was clear that he would personally entertain Yao Chen, Lin Diao, and the others, but for the less prominent Mu Chen and his companions, he could hardly be bothered to offer a formal greeting. Qing Shuang's expression remained unchanged as she nodded slightly, and then led the way ahead. Mu Chen gave a slight nod to Yao Chen, Lin Diao, and the others, before following with Ling Shi and Long Xiang. As they turned through the courtyard and entered an isolated area, Qing Shuang suddenly stopped and spun around. Her eyes, filled with anger, fixed on Mu Chen. "You fool! Are you looking for death? How dare you come to our Futu ancient clan? You've walked right into a trap." "Walk right into a trap?" Mu Chen met Qing Shuang's angry gaze with a calm smile, saying, "My mother has protected me for so many years. I'm not foolish enough to make such a move." "Oh, you think you know? This is the floating pagoda realm, the headquarters of the Futu ancient clan. With your great perfection strength, even a single elder here could easily capture you." Qing Shuang glared at him, furious. She had taken a huge risk to warn Mu Chen, asking him to hide well and not draw attention from the Futu ancient clan. But now, this guy had boldly arrived at their doorstep. How could she not be angry? "I don't think a random elder here could capture me," Mu Chen said with a smile. "You?" Qing Shuang's brows furrowed tightly, clearly frustrated by what she perceived as Mu Chen's arrogance. However, before she could speak further, Mu Chen took a step forward. In that instant, a terrifying, imposing aura erupted from his body, shaking the surrounding space. Qing Shuang's eyes widened in shock as she stared at him. Though the terrifying aura lasted only a moment, she could still feel it clearly from this distance. The sheer power of that aura was beyond what some of the elders in the clan could match. You've broken through to Heavenly Supreme." Qing Shuang's eyes widened in disbelief. A year ago, when she had last seen Mu Chen, he was only at great perfection. How had he, in just one short year, crossed the insurmountable heavenly abyss and stepped into the Heavenly Supreme realm? What kind of terrifying cultivation speed was this? What kind of talent and fortune did it require? As a member of the Futu ancient clan, Qing Shuang knew exactly how difficult it was to break through to Heavenly Supreme. Even with the Futu ancient clan's vast resources, reaching Heavenly Supreme was extremely challenging. Take Xian Luo and Mo Xian, for example. Both were leaders of the younger generation from the Xian lineage and the Mo lineage. Yet even with the help of the Futu ancient clan's resources, they had only just reached the point where they could touch the threshold of Heavenly Supreme, and they had no idea how long it would take to truly break through. But now, Mu Chen had taken that step ahead of them and entered Heavenly Supreme, leaving them far behind. This was truly unfathomable. It was just a lucky breakthrough, helped by some fortunate circumstances, Mu Chen said, his expression returning to normal. Qing Shuang stood stunned for a long time, gradually coming to her senses. She looked at Mu Chen with a complicated expression, knowing that if word of this spread within the Futu ancient clan, it would cause a massive upheaval. Previously, everyone had assumed Mu Chen was just a sin child. Without the Futu ancient clan's support, even with his extraordinary talent, his achievements would be limited. But the reality now was likely to slap those people in the face, showing them that even without the Futu ancient clan, this so-called Sin child could still surpass the geniuses that the clan had painstakingly nurtured. But even if you've advanced to the Heavenly Supreme, you still can't come to the Futu ancient clan. Qing Shuang took a deep breath before speaking in a low voice. The Heavenly Supreme was indeed powerful, but for the Futu ancient clan, it wasn't something that commanded awe. After all, the Futu ancient clan's foundation was too formidable. Even if it was a spirit-grade Heavenly Supreme, they wouldn't dare to cause trouble in the floating pagoda realm. I have my own measure, Mu Chen nodded and replied. Seeing Mu Chen's calm demeanor, Qing Shuang understood that persuasion was futile. She sighed softly and turned to lead the way, finally guiding the three of them to a quiet courtyard. Can I tell Elder Qing Xian about your situation? After everything was arranged, Qing Shuang looked at Mu Chen and asked. Mu Chen thought for a moment and then nodded. Upon seeing his response, Qing Shuang visibly relaxed, then withdrew. Mu Chen watched her retreating figure and turned to Ling Shi and Long Xiang. For the next few days, stay indoors. We'll wait until the Bloodline tournament begins. This was the Futu ancient clan, and if their identities were exposed now, it might lead to trouble. Although they had the support of the Boundless Fire Domain and the Martial Realm, that wouldn't help Mu Chen achieve his goal. Ling Shi and Long Xiang both nodded. They had stayed in the Futu ancient clan for a time and were well aware of the clan's depth. Now, entering this den of danger, they knew they had to be extremely cautious. After giving his instructions, Mu Chen moved and appeared atop a stone pavilion in the courtyard. He sat down cross-legged and looked up at the vast, void-like sky. In his jet-black eyes, spiritual light flickered, as if countless spiritual seals were reflected within them. To others, the sky of the floating pagoda realm might appear to be filled with vast, pure spiritual energy. But to Mu Chen, it revealed a hidden, majestic array. That array was the Futu ancient clan's clan protection spirit array. Its profound complexity was something even Mu Chen, with his current status as a spirit array grandmaster, couldn't fully comprehend. However, his goal was not to unravel the mysteries of this array, but to sense familiar techniques hidden within it. He continued to sense for hours, the afternoon passing by in the blink of an eye. As the sun began to set, the flickering light in his eyes gradually dimmed, and the spiritual light in them faded away. Is it really like this? He muttered softly, his expression thoughtful. Through his probing, he discovered that the Futu ancient clan's clan protection spirit array had some hidden flaws. These flaws were extremely subtle, but thanks to his mastery of the inherited techniques, Mu Chen could clearly sense them. If he wasn't mistaken, these flaws had been left by his mother. Just as Mu Chen was contemplating this, his expression shifted. He looked toward the courtyard, where the space rippled, and a figure slowly emerged. It was a graceful woman in a green robe, exuding an elegant aura. It was none other than Elder Qing Xian, whom Mu Chen had met before. Elder Qing Xian, you're quick to arrive. Mu Chen smiled as he observed her. Elder Qing Xian stared at Mu Chen. Suddenly, her figure moved, appearing before him like a ghost. With a swift motion, her long jade-like hand struck. Her palm transformed into a glowing light, and with a gentle motion, she struck directly at Mu Chen. At first glance, the strike seemed weak, but when it landed, even the stone pavilion collapsed, and the surrounding space trembled, as though it was about to shatter. The terrifying gust of wind from her strike howled toward Mu Chen, but his expression remained indifferent. Just as the gust was about to land, he casually waved his sleeve, sweeping it across the glowing wind. Bang! A low sound reverberated in the air, and Mu Chen remained motionless, while Elder Qing Xian staggered back a few steps. The space beneath her feet cracked open as she regained her balance. She did not attack again, but looked at Mu Chen with a complex gaze. When Qing Shuang told me earlier, I didn't believe it. But now I see. You've really stepped into the Heavenly Supreme realm. As she said this, a trace of gratification flashed across her eyes. However, the satisfaction quickly faded, and Elder Qing Xian sighed. But you still shouldn't have come here. The Futu ancient clan separated me from my mother for decades. Why shouldn't I come? Mu Chen replied indifferently, his dark eyes flashing with cold light. Elder Qing Xian gave a bitter smile. Even someone as strong as your mother, a saint-grade Heavenly Supreme, couldn't go against the Futu ancient clan. What can you, a spirit-grade heavenly supreme, do? The Futu ancient clan is indeed powerful, but that doesn't necessarily mean they can rampage unchecked in the great thousand worlds, does it? Mu Chen's tone was calm, not revealing the slightest hint of fear. Elder Qing Xian paused for a moment, then shook her head helplessly. She took it as just empty talk from Mu Chen. After all, while the Futu ancient clan might not be able to act with impunity in the great thousand worlds, they could certainly do so when it came to Mu Chen. What do you plan to do? Elder Qing Xian hesitated for a moment, gritted her teeth, and asked. Mu Chen's expression shifted slightly at her words. Looking at Elder Qing Xian, his usually indifferent face softened a little. Would you be willing to help me? Elder Qing Xian's expression darkened as she spoke softly. After all, she was my sister. But our Qing bloodline is growing weaker by the day. Our influence in the clan is also diminishing. The Xian bloodline and Ink bloodline have been suppressing us, so there's not much we can do about it. We couldn't protect your mother back then. Now, we can't just let you be captured. If that happens, my Qing bloodline would truly have failed both my sister and your grandfather. Mu Chen fell silent for a moment, understanding now that the Qing bloodline had once thrived under his grandfather's leadership, standing out among the many branch veins of the Futu ancient clan to become one of its major bloodlines. However, after his grandfather's death and his mother's refusal to lead the bloodline, the Qing bloodline distanced itself from the Futu ancient clan. Later, due to her marriage to his father and his birth, the clan became enraged and imprisoned his mother. Could you tell me about the current situation of the Qing bloodline? Mu Chen asked slowly. Although the Qing bloodline was weakening, if there was a chance to gain their support, it would still be a valuable ally. Mu Chen was not arrogant enough to think he could take on the Futu ancient clan alone. Elder Qing Xian smiled bitterly. The situation may be worse than you think. If we can't show any strength at this upcoming bloodline tournament, we might lose our major bloodline status and be relegated to a branch once again. Mu Chen's brows furrowed tightly. The Qing bloodline had fallen to such a miserable state. What exactly is this bloodline tournament? He asked. In the Futu ancient clan, the highest authority lies with the Elder Council. Any decree within the clan must pass through the council's deliberation. In other words, controlling the Elder Council means controlling the entire Futu ancient clan. Currently, there are 19 seats in the Elder Council. The Xian bloodline holds 7, the Ink bloodline 6, and our Qing bloodline only 3, along with 3 other seats for various branch bloodlines. Elder Qing Xian gave a faint smile, sighing as she explained. Only 3 seats. Mu Chen furrowed his brow. In a council with 19 seats, this was indeed a very small presence. At the peak, the Qing bloodline held 6 seats. But as our strength waned, we lost them one by one. So, every time the bloodline tournament is held, our seats in the Elder Council decrease, she continued. According to the rules, each bloodline with a seat in the Elder Council must defend one position during the tournament. The number of defenders is equal to the number of seats held. If the number of victories is fewer than the number of defeats, the bloodline will lose 1 seat. I see now. Mu Chen nodded thoughtfully. No wonder the Futu ancient clan took the bloodline tournament so seriously. It was directly tied to the clan's highest authority. The bloodline with more seats in the Elder Council would have more influence within the clan. As for the defending, Mu Chen understood. Since the Qing bloodline had 3 seats, they could send 3 members to defend. If they lost 2 matches and won 1, they would lose a seat. Over the years, the Xian bloodline and Ink bloodline have continuously suppressed our Qing bloodline. In every bloodline tournament, we've been their target. After 3 rounds, they've taken 3 of our seats. Elder Qing Xian's eyes flashed with a mix of anger and helplessness. It was a tragic reality, unable to hold on to their seats because their strength was lacking. Now that we only have 3 seats left, if we lose even 1 more, we'll be down to just 2. According to the clan's rules, the Qing bloodline will lose its status as a major bloodline, and we'll lose many resources. At that point, we'll be too weak to contend with the Xian and Ink bloodlines. At that thought, Qing Xian's face turned pale. If it came to that, it was uncertain when, or if, the Qing bloodline would ever rise again. and the voice of the Futu ancient clan would fall entirely into the hands of the profound lineage and the ink lineage. Hearing this, Mu Chen narrowed his eyes slightly. He had no particular interest in the Futu ancient clan, but both the profound lineage and the ink lineage had past grievances with him. On top of that, Elder Blacklight even had the audacity to summon the profound Heaven Elder to cause him trouble. That was a debt that needed repaying. Given how the profound lineage and ink lineage viewed him, if they were allowed to seize full control of the Futu ancient clan, Mu Chen wouldn't necessarily be afraid, but he'd undoubtedly face a wave of new troubles. Letting them take over would definitely not be good news for him. How can we stop them? Mu Chen asked slowly. As long as we can hold the ring with 2 victories, we can keep our seat, Qing Xian sighed. But those 2 lineages have deep foundations. They've come prepared, and they outnumber us in heavenly supremes. Stopping them won't be easy. Hearing her pessimism, Mu Chen could tell just how dire the Qing bloodline situation was. He shook his head and said, "Why only defend and not attack? If there was defense, naturally there should be offense too." Qing Xian gave a helpless smile. "We're already struggling to defend. How can we possibly mount an attack?" Mu Chen ignored her and continued, "Will any Saint-grade Heavenly Supremes take part in the Bloodline tournament?" Of course not. Any lineage that reveals a Saint-grade Heavenly Supreme can directly enter the Elder Council. One person alone is worth 5 seats, Qing Xian said quickly. At that, Mu Chen frowned. "If that's the case, why is my mother still imprisoned?" A Saint-grade Grandmaster was comparable to a Saint-grade Heavenly Supreme. Even with the depth of the Futu ancient clan, he didn't believe they'd abandon someone like that lightly. Qing Xian gritted her teeth. It was the profound and ink lineages stirring up trouble. When your mother was first imprisoned, she hadn't yet reached that level. So they labeled her a criminal. By the time she did, they were even more afraid she'd return to the Qing bloodline and cause our strength to soar. So they forced a full vote in the Elder Council. The first elder is stubborn and old-fashioned, and under the council's name, they denied your mother the position she deserved and kept her imprisoned under that same label. Mu Chen's eyes turned cold. A murderous gleam flickered. Those scum from the profound and ink lineages had truly gone too far. Qing Xian's face showed guilt. It's also because our Qing bloodline has declined. Even if we opposed it, it wouldn't have made a difference. Though some within the Qing bloodline resented Qing Yanjing for abandoning them out of personal feelings, they all knew that only her return could restore their former glory. So they were doing everything they could to clear her name. But the Qing bloodline was no longer what it used to be. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't compete with the combined power of the profound and ink lineages. Mu Chen nodded slightly. After a moment of silence, he suddenly said, "I can help you hold your seat." Qing Xian was startled. Her beautiful eyes widened in surprise and uncertainty as she stared at him. "You have a way?" Mu Chen didn't answer directly. "I have my methods. If you trust me, let me handle it." Qing Xian hesitated, then clenched her teeth. "I'll go back and talk to the others." At this point, they had no choice but to try anything. For someone like Mu Chen to reach the Heavenly Supreme Realm at such a young age, he was clearly no ordinary person. Perhaps he truly had a solution. Mu Chen nodded, his tone calm. "But if I help you, you'll have to do something for me in return." "What is it?" Mu Chen raised his palm. Several jade slips appeared in his hand. With a flick of his finger, a drop of his blood shot out and landed on them, forming faint blood-red runes. He handed them to Qing Xian. "As elders of the Futu ancient clan, you should know the central nodes of the clan protection array. I need you to find a chance to bury these jade slips in those nodes before the Bloodline tournament." Qing Xian's expression changed instantly. That clan protection array defended the entire floating pagoda realm. How could they tamper with it so recklessly? "I'm not here to make enemies of the entire Futu ancient clan," Mu Chen said calmly, noting her reaction. "All I want is to rescue my mother. But the Futu ancient clan is strong, and I need leverage to negotiate." Qing Xian's face revealed a look of struggle. "Even if you don't trust me, you should trust my mother's character, right? She won't just sit idly by and let me destroy the Futu ancient clan." Upon hearing these words, Qing Xian's expression gradually softened. She might not know much about Mu Chen, but when it came to her younger sister, she understood her very well. Although she held some resentment toward the imprisonment by the Futu ancient clan, she could never truly harbor hatred for it. After all, it was the place where she was born and raised, and many of her blood relatives were there. Furthermore, while the clan protection spirit array was important, it was impossible to use it to overthrow the Futu ancient clan. Given Mu Chen's wisdom, he likely understood this as well. Alright, I agree. With her mind made up, Qing Xian no longer hesitated. She nodded firmly and carefully took the jade slips stained with Mu Chen's blood essence from his hands. Seeing this, Mu Chen secretly let out a sigh of relief. This step was incredibly important to him. Although he had the support of the boundless fire domain and the power of the martial realm, he feared that the old-timers in the Futu ancient clan might not be reasonable and could try to forcefully intervene. After all, the Futu ancient clan had a heavenly supreme among them, so he had to prepare sufficient countermeasures. Then, thank you, Elder Qing Xian. Seeing Mu Chen's polite smile, Qing Xian couldn't help but sigh inwardly. When it came to blood relatives, Mu Chen should actually call her aunt, but clearly, he harbored some resentment toward them. The politeness and distance between them were unmistakable. But when she thought about how Mu Chen had been separated from his mother since he could remember, struggling and cultivating alone all these years, enduring countless hardships, it was only natural for him to have some grievances. She could only hope that Mu Chen would truly rescue his mother, and that their relationship would gradually improve in the future. With everything settled, Qing Xian did not stay any longer. She bid Mu Chen farewell and quickly left. Mu Chen watched Qing Xian's departing figure and let out a long sigh. Her help had certainly spared him a lot of trouble. Now, with everything in place, all that was left was to wait for the Bloodline tournament to begin. Mu Chen stood with his hands behind his back, looking up at the sky, his ink-black eyes as deep as the abyss. Futu ancient clan, this time, let's see how we fare. And for this day, he had been waiting for many years. In the following days, Mu Chen, Ling Shi, and Long Xiang all stayed in the courtyard without going out. However, Lin Jing and Xiao Xiao frequently came and went, making the place lively and not lonely at all. Even though they rarely went out, Mu Chen and the others could still sense that the atmosphere within the floating pagoda realm was growing more and more intense. Every day, spirit boats would whistle through the sky, bringing with them representatives from various superpowers. Each of these factions seemed even more powerful than Mu Manor. Seeing this, even Mu Chen couldn't help but marvel. The 5 ancient clans were truly extraordinary. Just their ability to mobilize such forces was enough to make ordinary superpowers feel ashamed. As more and more superpowers gathered, the Futu ancient clan announced the time for the Bloodline tournament, which would take place 3 days later. With all eyes on the event, the 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. 3 days later, the sound of a melodious bell echoed throughout the floating pagoda realm, resounding for a long time. Whoosh, whoosh. As the bell rang, the air was filled with the sound of wind breaking. Lights shot up into the sky, racing toward the deep mountains beyond. The entire world seemed to be filled with a boiling energy, for today marked the beginning of the Futu ancient clan's grand event, the Bloodline tournament. Mu Chen stood in the courtyard, his expression calm as he watched the bustling scene in the sky. Behind him, Ling Shi and Long Xiang looked more serious, for according to Mu Chen's plan, if he were to take action, today would be the day. Outside the courtyard, a graceful figure hurriedly approached. It was Qing Shuang. She saw Mu Chen and handed him an item from her sleeve, a green-colored token. The token was engraved with an ancient character meaning leader. Looking at the green token, Qing Shuang's usually icy expression grew somewhat complicated as she spoke softly. This is our Qing Bloodline's clan leader token. The one who holds this token is the leader of our bloodline. Although I don't know what you plan to do, with this token in the Bloodline tournament, you are the leader of my Qing bloodline. With this identity, even if the elders think you're a sin child, they cannot oppose you on the spot. Only a meeting of the Elder Council can pass judgment. Mu Chen's eyes flickered with a trace of surprise upon hearing this. Clearly, he had not expected the Qing bloodline to hand him the clan leader token. If anything unexpected were to happen later, the Qing bloodline itself could be implicated. As Aunt Xian said, if we fail this time, our Qing bloodline will be reduced to a branch clan. That would be a devastating blow to us. Instead of passively watching as the Xian lineage and Mo lineage crush us, We might as well fight for a chance. Qing Shuang seemed to understand Mu Chen's surprise. She sighed softly and continued. Mu Chen's expression softened slightly as he pondered, then extended his hand to accept the green token. With this in his possession, he could proceed with peace of mind, ensuring that the Futu ancient clan wouldn't preemptively block him. Also, Aunt Xian asked me to tell you that everything you asked her to prepare is ready, Qing Shuang added. Hearing this, Mu Chen finally relaxed slightly. If this plan succeeded, he would have enough leverage to confront the Futu ancient clan head-on. Mu Chen, can you really help us Qing bloodline retain our position? Qing Shuang hesitated, her red lips biting down lightly as she spoke in a low voice. This matter was incredibly important to the Qing bloodline. Qing Shuang didn't know why Aunt Xian placed such unwavering trust in Mu Chen, but regardless, the Mu Chen standing before her had only just stepped into the spirit-grade heavenly supreme realm. Right now, he was merely in the early stages of the spirit-grade heavenly supreme. With such power, it was doubtful that he could turn the tides against the Futu ancient clan. Mu Chen smiled lightly and replied, "Since you've entrusted me with this, I will naturally do my best." His smile was calm, but the determination and confidence in his eyes inspired a surprising sense of faith in those who saw him. Qing Shuang was similarly affected. A rare smile appeared on her jade-like face, and she nodded gently before bowing respectfully to Mu Chen. In that case, our Qing bloodline thanks you. It's just a matter of mutual need. Mu Chen waved his hand, his gaze lifting to the sky. The time is almost right. We should get moving. I will lead the way. Qing Shuang smiled and transformed into a streak of light, soaring into the sky. Mu Chen and the others immediately followed suit. As they soared through the sky, mountains rapidly retreated beneath them. In the distance, Mu Chen could see waves of light converging, each carrying an overwhelming energy. However, even these major forces, which were considered overlords in the Great Thousand Worlds, seemed rather ordinary here. This only emphasized just how formidable the Futu ancient clan was. Under Qing Shuang's guidance, the four gradually slowed their pace after about 10 minutes. Ahead of them, a majestic peak rose into the sky, reaching the clouds like a giant pillar. Its imposing presence was breathtaking. Atop the main peak, numerous large white jade platforms were arranged in an orderly fashion, each exuding a sharp and formidable aura. Surrounding the main peak were several smaller mountains, each housing a designated position. From time to time, beams of light descended from the sky, landing in the assigned areas. In just a few minutes, the mountains below were filled with a lively, bustling atmosphere. Following Qing Shuang, the group landed on one of the smaller peaks. It wasn't particularly eye-catching, but it offered a clear view of the jade platforms atop the main peak. As they landed, Mu Chen's gaze swept across the nearby mountains. He saw that the larger mountains closest to the main peak were adorned with magnificent stone pavilions and courtyards. The treatment there was clearly superior to the other locations. Mu Chen understood that those spots must belong to the top superpowers of the Great Thousand Worlds. He could even spot Xiao Xiao and Lin Jing among the figures in those areas. Clearly, in the eyes of the Futu ancient clan, only such superpowers could be considered honored guests. Boom, boom. Just as Mu Chen was surveying the surroundings, a sudden series of ancient, melodious bell chimes echoed throughout the mountain range, resonating through the entire world. The sound of the bell rang across the heavens and the earth, causing all the powerful beings in the area to sense it. They instinctively looked up, only to see countless rays of spiritual light erupting from the very peak of the majestic mountain. Within the sacred radiance, streaks of light and shadow emerged one after another. Each projection emanated a staggering spiritual pressure, so intense that even the leaders of the gathered superpowers felt a chill in their hearts. As the light faded, 20 figures appeared atop the main peak. 19 of them stood clearly apart from one another, yet all respectfully positioned themselves behind a single individual at the front. That individual was an elderly man with snow-white hair. Compared to the 19 figures behind him, each radiating vast, overwhelming spiritual power, he gave off no aura at all. He appeared as ordinary as any aging mortal, unremarkable in every way. And yet, the moment those gathered superpowers laid eyes on him, Their expressions tightened, and they instinctively showed reverence. Saint Grade Heavenly Supreme. Mu Chen's gaze also locked onto the white-haired elder the moment he appeared. As he stared at the man, his own skin began to prickle with pain, and a deep sense of peril surged up from the depths of his being. Because this frail, almost feeble old man was, unmistakably, a Saint Grade Heavenly Supreme. Greetings, First Elder. As the elder revealed himself, the voices of countless members of the Futu ancient clan rang out in unison, filled with respect. Even the other elders bore expressions of awe. The Futu ancient clan's highest authority had always been the clan leader. Yet that position had remained vacant for years, with no suitable successor. In that time, it was this first elder alone who had upheld the clan's legacy and power, preventing its decline. His reputation and seniority were unmatched. No one in the clan dared to challenge him. That's the first elder of our Futu ancient clan, Futu Xian. Qing Shuang said softly, looking at the aged figure. Her delicate face was filled with reverence. The Xian lineage and the Ink lineage have been feuding for years. If it weren't for the first elder keeping them in check, who knows how much chaos the clan would be in by now. Mu Chen's expression remained calm. There was no denying Futu Xian's strength and importance to the clan. But no matter how much he had done for the Futu ancient clan, it had nothing to do with Mu Chen. All he knew was that this stubborn old man was the reason he and his mother had been separated for so many years. Under the watchful eyes of all present, Futu Xian, standing at the peak, allowed a faint smile to grace his solemn, time-worn face. Sweeping his gaze across the gathering, his aged voice echoed between the mountains. Today is a grand occasion for our Futu ancient clan. I am truly honored by your presence. I, Futu Xian, thank you all. In response to his words, the leaders of many superpowers bowed respectfully in return. With his level of strength, Futu Xian was undoubtedly among the elite of the Great Thousand Worlds, a man who truly stood at its pinnacle. After the formalities, Futu Xian turned and took his seat atop the main peak's jade platform. His gaze settled on the 19 figures below as he solemnly declared, "The Bloodline tournament begins now. If you wish to keep your place, then show your strength. Otherwise, those seats will go to others who have toiled just as hard." Yes. The 19 figures responded in unison, their voices steady and resolute. In the blink of an eye, they turned into beams of light, shooting toward the various jade platforms scattered across the main peak. At the same time, a surge of immense spiritual power erupted from the 19 combatants, sweeping across the heavens and earth in a storm of raw energy. The Bloodline tournament begins.